Number 10. Spider-CYBORG. This Peter Parker came from Earth 2818. This universe's Spider-Man has become a cyborg. His design is very reminiscent of DC's Cyborg. He has the red eye, his arm can detach and utilize sonic cannons. He was thought to be much more powerful than Peter Parker because of these cybernetic enhancements. However, this also made him a target when the Spiderverse event was ongoing. This was when spider totems were being hunted. He teamed up with Superior Spider-Man's team to take on Karn, but was ultimately taken out by the Inheritors. The Inheritors were a clan who hunted and fed on spider totems, like Spider-Man. So they're basically specific Spider-Man vampires. Mileage varies in how well they were received. Number 9. Spiderling. So the idea of Mary Jane and Peter Parker having children and those children taking up some kind of spider mantle is not a new one at all, no matter what J.J. Abrams and his son try to tell you. Revolutionary. Spiderling is Anime Parker, coming to us from Secret Wars, inhabiting an area of Battleworld known as the Regency. She began to develop Spider-Man-like powers as she aged, and her powers are actually much more enhanced than her father's. For example, her spider sense has become a form of precognition, and she can not only see events that will happen in detail, but this can happen to her hours in advance. Also super important, she is a pathmaker, meaning she can control the connections on the web of life and destiny, literally changing people's fates, so she can make herself or others stronger, forge armors, etc. Take that, Peter. Well, not really. No shame in your kids being better than you. That's the time for pride. Number 8. Man-Spider. One of Spider-Man's consistent fears is being overwhelmed by Spider-Man, and nowhere does this happen more literally than when he starts to mutate into Man-Spider. This is because his DNA could be viewed as in flux. Just a little bit of a nudge sends him more down that path to his mutagenic nightmare. That was the name of one of the arcs where this happened. The full-blown Man-Spider is credited to the 90s animated series. As before that in comics he got 6 arms, but it was something that was dealt with pretty quickly, and also that was the same issue where he met Morbius, fun fact. In the comics the transformation tends to be triggered by meddling, people messing with his DNA, and less so because that's just the way he's going. One big devolution, or evolution depending upon how you look at it, happened in the Savage Land, because anything can happen in the Savage Land. Rogue can make out with people in the Savage Land. Number 7. Spider-Man Assassin, or Assassin Spider-Man. There is a version of Peter out there who is a stone cold assassin from Earth 8351. Here's a quote, just cuz I like it. Newsflash, I'm not the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man anymore. Some folks need killing, and this monster's a prime example. I just imagine this how he'd say it. I can't handle all this edge. So this Peter was trained by Wolverine and works with him. This version is pretty similar to the original Peter Parker, but has refined all his reflexes because he has trained to be a killing machine. He actually managed to take down Black Widow. His spider sense has become so much a second nature that he claims he just knows things. Also, he's a master marksman, cause yeah, he uses a gun, he's edgy. He is thought to be stronger than his 616 counterpart. This is because he's more focused and doesn't allow himself with distractions, so that's a lesson. With great power comes the need to become a skilled assassin. Number 6. Spidercide. So this is one of Peter's clones from a Clone Saga arc, and he was created by the Jackal. The Clone Saga may be oft mocked, and it was a mess by the end, but there were some cool characters to come out of it. If they had let them end it when they wanted to, the world would be a very different place. Better? Worse? Just different. Like most of the Peter clones, he believed he was the real Peter at the start. However, he is far from a perfect clone, especially after his shapeshifting abilities activated. Yes, you heard that right, shapeshifting. Spidercide has control over his molecular structure in a manner similar to Mr. Fantastic, but not quite to the same level in some regards, but actually more in others. He can change his form and appearance. Also, he can withstand falls and bullets to an extent. He can even turn into liquid. He's like a Terminator. So stronger than Peter, yes, but it's fine, because when you need to go, the writers get you gone. Despite being able to withstand falls, he died falling off a building, cause oops, it was only falls of a certain height. Number 5. The Spider. So the Spider comes to us from the Exiles universe. Exiles was a series populated almost entirely by alternates. It featured a team of heroes and villains pulled from their own universes and brought together. This was to maintain the integrity of the universe, or so they thought at first. This Peter Parker comes from Earth 15 and is essentially just Cletus Cassidy. He's ginger, a mass murderer, attached to Carnage, and he just likes hurting people. Of course, having a symbiote is always an edge. It increases strength, allows for the creation of constructs, it's a boost in agility, and while this Peter is very well bonded to Carnage because they share that same sense of cruelty. He was part of the Time Breaker's Weapon X team for a while, but ultimately it looks like he has met his demise, so Peter doesn't need to worry about him anytime soon. Or that's sweaty. Number 4. Spider-Man 2099. Miguel O'Hara and his famous red and black suit, which, fun fact, were the original colors pitched for the Venomized Spider-Man costume. Miguel is from the future, obviously, and a cyberpunkish one at that. His powers are the result of a rewriting his genetic code via machine, unwillingly by the way. However, he has more powers than Peter Parker in the past, and let me tell you just some of them. He can move so fast he can leave behind a body double of himself, a body decoy they call it. He also appears to be moderately telepathic. He has better eyes, just superhuman eyes. He ages slower, just like a spider. I mean, shouldn't he age faster? Doesn't matter. He ages slower, like a spider. Extra points if you get that reference. He also has talons and fangs. They secrete a paralyzing venom, actually like a spider. His webbing is organic, coming from the spinnerets in his wrists. That's just a lot. Number 3. Spider-Girl, ANYA CORAZON. She originally went by the codename ANYA. She got her powers from the Spider Society when their sorcerer saw that she had the potential to become the group's new hunter, as she had tried to save a man and instead been fatally wounded. The sorcerer transferred some of his energy to her. This was to save her, but it also gave her a spider-shaped tattoo, and this further allowed her powers. So she has all the usual spider powers you would expect, but also again with that increased longevity and shadow camouflaging, and while also the backing of the Spider Society. There are so many interesting versions of Spider-Man out there. Honestly, go down the rabbit hole, you may be pleasantly surprised. I love Peter, but he needs to get his life in order. I am not over him sleeping on Mockingbird's couch. Sad times. Number 2. Miles Morales. A character who predates the Spider-Verse by a couple of years. He debuted in Ultimate Fallout number 4 in 2011, and is one of the more fondly remembered elements of the 1610 universe, or the Ultimate Universe. He is also an excellent example of transitioning a character, one handled with respect for the original and also for the new character. Miles took up the mantle of Spider-Man after Peter Parker in his universe was killed. He struggled for a bit to find his footing and his own identity, but once he did, he created a rich tapestry of his own. So much so that he was one of the few characters to be imported when the Ultimate Universe was, well, ultimately collapsed. We just imported what we wanted into the 616 main verse. It's a thing, it happens. Miles was a successful legacy character because in his universe that's what he was. Now what is he? Another Spider-Man running around, but it's fine, we have multiples of everybody running around. Yeah. Number 1. Cosmic Spider-Man. This version of Spider-Man has been infused with the power of Captain Universe. Captain Universe isn't a person, it's the Uni power, which is an aspect of the Enigma Force, and when it chooses a host, that host not only gets a sweet new Captain Universe makeover, but access to the power set, such as Univision, a cosmic consciousness, and matter/energy manipulation. When Peter had this power, it wasn't permanent. However, there was a what-if story wherein he kept the powers, and it slowly began to make him more and more detached as he tried to solve as many of the world's problems as possible, and then he had a baby and transferred the powers into it. Then there was another version that was utilized for the Spider-Verse, and was killed when the Enigma Force was drained from his body. So that's one way to get rid of him.
Number 10. Future Foundation. This suit was given to Spider-Man following Johnny Storm's death in the comics, when Spider-Man stepped in to sort of take over his role with the Fantastic Four, as well as working with the Future Foundation. This suit is made out of unstable molecules, which Reed created/discovered. The makeup of the suit makes it more durable, increasing its resistance to pressure, heat, and cold. Spider-Man can also change the look of his suit with just a thought, turning it back to his traditional blue and red, or turning it all black to stealth mode. It can even transform to resemble civilian clothes. And in case you can't tell, I really like the Future Foundation suit. I just like Fantastic Four things. Number 9. Symbiote suit. Although the symbiote suit was not a fan favorite due to its color scheme and it wasn't as predictable as Parker would have liked, it is also an insanely powerful suit. Spider-Man sought out Reed Richards just to help him figure out how to get the thing off of him, and to figure out just what was going on with this wacky suit. And even after the suit was detached from Peter, it would end up escaping and find its way back to him. This of course was because it was a symbiote, so it was a living being. The symbiote, in fact, that would go on to become Venom. But even without Spider-Man's abilities, it was pretty strong. It had its own built-in pocket dimension that you could store things in, which was only really ever mentioned one time, or used one time. And the suit can also shapeshift, is super durable, and can heal its wearer, making it likely one of the coolest suits that Peter Parker has ever worn or owned. Do you own a symbiote if it's with you? I guess it's like it chose to stay with him instead of owned, just had a relationship with. So even if everyone was not a fan of its color scheme, it was still a pretty cool suit. Number 8. Miles' suit. So this This one, obviously, it does not belong to Peter, but instead to one of the alternate Ultimate Spider-Men, and one of the most popular Spider alternates around, Miles Morales. Miles was given this suit by S.H.I.E.L.D. after his old costume was deemed hideous by Nick Fury. Being that it's made by S.H.I.E.L.D., you can bet that it is built for action. It also comes with S.H.I.E.L.D. crafted web shooters, which appear to be an improvement on the original design. And its color scheme of red and black definitely lends better than the more traditional look of red and blue in regards to stealth.
Number 7, Scarlet Spider. Now there have been several characters who have taken on this mantle, but we're going to look at the first for our purposes, and that's Ben Reilly. He debuted as such with that name in Spider-Man number 51 in 1994. That's because it's adjectiveless Spider-Man. It's rare for Spider-Man comics to not have an adjective. However, the concept of Peter having clones, specifically Ben, had been around since the 70s, but that had been intended to be a one-shot and then a ballooned. This Ben heralds back to smack dab in the middle of the clone saga. A saga that has a lot of history and is now an infamous case of editorial pushing a story to go on too far. Ben Reilly would prove popular, even if the bait and switch initially pulled of him being the real Spider-Man and Peter Parker was not. In fact, after his death, there was fan backlash to bring him back. Ben Reilly is the first successful Peter Parker clone created by Miles Warren, aka the Jackal, and one of the most stable and well, nice. Not homicidal like some of those other clones out there who made this list as well. The name Ben Reilly comes from both Uncle Ben and Aunt May. The Ben from Uncle Ben, and the May from May's maiden name. Fans of Ben admired his attempts to build his own life and fight through the existential crisis that comes with being a clone. Who am I? What's the purpose of my existence? Plus, he had a vest. Never underestimate the appeal of a vest.
Number 6, Spider-Man 2099. What if we combine the Future Foundation suit with the alternate Punisher Spider-Man suit and sprinkled in a little sci-fi tech? Well, then we'd have this suit. The suit of alternate Spider-Man from the future, Miguel O'Hara. This suit is equipped with toxic spikes and airfoil cape complete with anti-grav particles, which allows Spider-Man, yes, to glide, and is also made of unstable molecules. Yep, it's pretty nifty. It also just looks super cool, which gives it some bonus points for style. And heck, if we are going the Into the Spider-Verse version of this suit route that was teased in the after credits scene, you might even get your own Spider Watch with it, which allows the user to travel to alternate dimensions. Pretty neat. Also, we need a new name for that item. Spider Watch does not really explain that it allows you to travel to alternate dimensions. Number 5, Fear Itself Spider Suit. The only thing preventing this suit from being higher up on the list is how short-lived it was. During the Fear Itself event, Spider-Man ended up, like all the other heroes in the story, getting his own set of Uru armor. In his case, it was a spider suit that was also equipped with 2 gauntlets, which concealed blades. Uru blades. It is magical and ancient and requires the skill of the dwarves of Nidavellir when it comes to crafting with it. Nidavellir is of course one of the 9 realms and one of the places where you can find this material. It is nigh indestructible, and Tony Stark, with the dwarves' help, made this Uru suit and gauntlets specifically for Spider-Man. Unfortunately, Odin ordered that all Uru weapons and armor that were used in the battle against the Serpent be destroyed afterwards, and so Spidey's suit was, of course, destroyed afterwards. Not everything got destroyed though, but Spidey's suit did. Number 4, Homecoming Suit. This is the first suit that Tom Holland's Peter Parker in the MCU gets from Tony Stark. It comes with its own intelligent interface, which Spider-Man decides to name Karen. This suit comes with an insane amount of gadgets, allows Peter to track more easily and sneak, even managing to eavesdrop on others and hear conversations from far away. It has more than 500 different types of web shooters. Now, the only thing holding this suit back from being as powerful as it could be initially are its training wheels protocols, which fortunately Ned manages to unlock by hacking the suit, granting Peter access to the suit's full capabilities. That is a lot of web shooters, I'm just saying. Number 3, Superior Spider Suit. This suit is another one that doesn't really belong to Peter, but I guess it also kind of does? Belongs to his body at least. This suit was built by Otto Octavius, following his body swap with Peter. So, it's Otto Octavius, but in Parker's body. He adopted the mantle of Spider-Man in an effort to do better than Peter Parker, after being inspired by Parker on his deathbed, while he was inside Octavius' failing body. Otto modified the suit after becoming Superior Spider-Man, adding claws and foot talons, a carbonadium lining to enhance strength, and, more importantly, to prevent further body swapping, and extra spider arms as an homage to his previous role as Doc Ock, among other things. Later on, he'd even add energy weapons to this suit. Number 2, Iron Spider Suit. This is the suit that Spider-Man was given in the MCU upon heading to space with Iron Man, although Iron Man originally gave it to Peter to help keep him safe while he returned home, which was what he had expected to happen. Spider-Man, being Spider-Man of course, didn't listen and returned to the Q ship that he and Iron Man had been after, aiming to prevent Thanos from getting the Time Stone and to help save Doctor Strange from the clutches of Ebony Maw. This suit has environmental controls that allow Spider-Man to use the suit in space, and being built by Tony Stark, it is remarkably durable, allowing Spider-Man to take a direct punch from Thanos and still survive. It also has the immensely strong spider legs, which were shown to be able to withstand Thanos' grip. Whoa! Wow! Number 1, Spider-Man 2211. You didn't think I was going to just let the MCU take this one, did you? Although I will admit that the Iron Spider suit is insanely powerful. I cannot deny that. Now, Max Bourne is a Spider-Man from the future. His suit is definitely one any version of Spidey would be lucky to have in their closet. It is bulletproof, has 4 mechanical arms, and comes with a helmet that can help him to see into the future. Yeah. He's also got electro and guided webbing at his disposal, environmental controls, and his suit allows him to time travel. He even has rocket boots which allow him to fly around. He's actually sort of like the time police in the future, traveling around to help prevent timeline disruptions. So I gotta give it to that suit just for all of the timey-wimey stuff.
Number 10, Spider-Punk. Let's start off with a more obscure alternate, shall we? But one with quite the look. Spikes will never die, nor will the punk aesthetic. The spirit may be something else, but that's a discussion for another day. Spider-Punk is Hobart Brown from Earth 138 and comes to us from the Spiderverse event of 2014. But he appeared in 2015. The Spiderverse was an event where Spider-Man met so many alternate versions of himself, because there were spider totems. Being a spider person was now like an assignment from a spider god type thing. They were being hunted down by spider vampires. Mileage varies on the plot itself, but people really liked the alternates. And there was pretty much all the kinds that you could conceive. For Hobart, he was a homeless teen bitten by a radioactive spider, while irradiated in a toxic waste dump. He becomes a punk rock version of Spider-Man, with a guitar, leading the downtrodden people against President Norman Osborn. And he would be recruited to join the army of Spider-Men. For many, they just love the concept of a punk rock Spider-Man. And the images are all very fun. Sneakers, jean vests, head spikes in the form of a mohawk. There's always time for fashion. Number 9, Spider Assassin from Earth 8351. This is an alternate version of Peter Parker. He first appeared in a What If story, What If Spider-Man vs. Wolverine #1. In this universe, you had very much the same Peter Parker until he fought Wolverine. Then everything completely diverged and he ended up being trained by him and becoming an assassin. Cold-blooded assassin. No more friendly neighborhood Spider-Man over here. Fans of a darker, harder-edged Peter tend to gravitate towards characters like Spider Assassin. His costume, again, is also cool. And of course has black accents rather than blue because he's edgy. In this universe, he left Mary Jane for a woman named Alex, who looked almost exactly like Gwen Stacy and also died. Don't look like Gwen Stacy. He would be recruited into the Spiderverse event alongside original characters like Spider-Punk. He wouldn't make it though. So much spider carnage in that event. Number 8, Spider-Wolf. So if you remember Cap Wolf, and why wouldn't you? That's Captain America when he was a werewolf. Well, other people felt left out. So we have a Spider-Man werewolf. And well, I guess this version would mostly be stronger than Peter, while he was in werewolf form at least, but depending upon the lore, he could also have some enhanced strength while just in regular form. This character appeared in the Amazing Spider-Man Volume 3 3 number 11 and was pretty much instantly killed, so we sadly did not get to see much of his adventures. But I like to imagine he somehow managed to have his life more together than Peter as well. You know, just beat him in all the areas. Take that, Peter, but really. Nerd question. Do we feel like Peter would actually mutate into a proper werewolf, or should he have been some kind of horrible spider-wolf hybrid that should not be? You know, something twitching on the ground with limbs coming out of all the orifices. I don't know, just a thought.
Number 7. Ultimate Symbiote Suit. So this suit is really strong, but its strength kind of comes at a cost. In the Ultimate Universe, the symbiote venom is made in a lab as opposed to coming from outer space. It's created to be a cure for cancer. So if you can manage to get into the symbiote suit in that reality, it actually has great regenerative healing properties in addition to increasing your strength and being bulletproof. Its strength is so great, it was actually shown to be tough enough to take on both Ultimate Spider-Men at one point, both Peter and Miles. However, the downside to the suit is that it makes the wearer increasingly violent, and Peter almost died when the suit was electrocuted. Electricity is really its only weakness in the ultimate reality. And it's gotta be really strong electricity. And so after learning all this information, Peter decided it was best if the suit was destroyed. I mean, what's wrong with a little violence?
Number 6, Superior Spider-Man. A controversial pick for some, as there were some fans who absolutely loathed this arc. And it is a rather different kind of alternate, because all this is happening in the main verse in the body of main verse Peter. But let me explain. The mind is that of Dr. Octopus, who tricked Peter Parker to coming to him and then swapped with him while he was dying so that Peter's mind was trapped in his dying corpse body. For some reason, some fans were worried that this was going to be permanent. Which, I don't know, I mean, is anything life? It obviously ended up not being, and there was a kernel of Peter's consciousness that was left and then ended up unfurling and took back over eventually. However, some were fans of the villainous Doc Ock trying to be a better Spider-Man than Spider-Man himself. From the army of spider robots patrolling the city, to a sassy Spider-Man who a disturbing amount of his comrades couldn't identify wasn't the real Peter. For some fans, the Superior Spider-Man as an arc has earned its place as a favorite. Superior Spider-Man is still around, but it's not the same. Number 5, Spidercide. Midway through, yet another clone. The clone saga would have been pretty disappointing if it hadn't given us what its name implied. Clones. Many clones. When Spidercide emerged from the Jackal's pod, he was convinced that he was Peter Parker. When he was confronted with all these other versions who were already out, he decided that he was going to prove that he was the one and only by being as homicidal as possible. He became obsessed with proving that he was the real Peter Parker. He was unstable and violent and had been designed to kill the original Peter Parker. His name comes from the fact that it said that he was willing to commit Spidercide, so mass homicide of Spider-Mans. Now some of you may be wondering, why Spidercide and not Cain with his hand that he put on people's faces and do the mark of Cain thing? There was something classically menacing about Spidercide, from his simplicity to his size. And such a back to basics baddie worked for some fans, and made him a rather cool addition to all these clones running around out there. Number 4, Spider-Man Noir. If there's one thing Marvel loves, it's an alternate universe story where the characters exist in another time period or genre, and Spider-Man Noir gives you both. Spider-Man Noir came into the world in 2009, and it gave the world a Peter Parker who was from 1933 and also from a Pulp Fiction style universe. A Peter Parker bitten by an illegally imported venomous spider. Now Spider-Man Noir was not the only noir story to be created by Marvel, but it was one of the ones that blended the concepts together the best. They just kind of worked well together. The Into the Spider-Verse animated film also increased interest and fondness for this character, particularly his perplexedness over Rubik's Cubes, monochromatism. The Spider-Man Noir comic would get a spin-off and then the character would become part of the Spider-Verse event, but I mean, who wasn't? Number 3, Spider-Gwen, aka Spider-Woman, aka Ghost Spider, aka we just need to accept that everybody's gonna call her Spider-Gwen. She was conceived of for the Spider-Verse event by Dan Slott, who had been writing Spider-Man for quite some time at that point and become obsessed with the idea of Gwen Stacy as Spider-Man. So the idea was born and would take off and would actually owe a lot of its success to her costume. Again, these things matter, people. The costume blew up and became one of the most cosplayed on the con circuit. This would actually cause a series of variant covers starring Gwen to be launched, one of which would be with Deadpool, which would actually launch the origin of Gwenpool. So we've got 2 characters out of 1. Gwen had an endearingly familiar story and design that resonated with people. She too got a boost from that Spider-Verse movie. That was just a solid movie. Most people came out of that liking most of the characters who were presented in it. Peter B. Parker. Number 2, Ghost Spider. A name that is now going to cause some confusion, as that is the name of Spider-Gwen's latest comic. This Ghost Spider comes from Earth 11638 and is not Gwen Stacy. So in this universe, Peter Parker's Uncle Ben never died, but Peter still became Spider-Man anyway. Hooray! But a more pompous, arrogant one, but still. Spider-Man was seemingly killed and put in a coma for good in this universe, but really his soul was trapped in hell. And with the help of Bruce Banner, that universe's Sorcerer Supreme, he was infused with the souls of the repentant damned. This allowed him a second chance at life, so he awoke from his coma and became a Ghost Spider. So what does this mean? Well, it means here we have a Spider-Man who also is infused with the Ghost Rider's powers. Empathic reading, sim manipulation, hellfire manifestation, dimensional travel, just to name a few. Sit down, Peter. Today is not your day. And in at number 1, Spider-Man 2099. The future. It can be a hard concept to pull off and make cool and credible, but the steampunk-esque adventure that was Spider-Man 2099 pulled it off. Meet Miguel O'Hara, who worked at an evil, because of course they were, corporation called Alchemax. Miguel is a geneticist who is trying to recreate the powers of Spider-Man for the company. That is until he learned a little bit more about them, and then he wanted out. Well, when they heard that, they got him addicted to an illegal drug that they were the only people who could legally distribute it. So if he didn't get it from them, he was getting it from the street, and that meant he had to be arrested, so he was trapped. Well, in order to try and get out of this, he realized he had left his genetic code inside of the machine, so he tried to revert to that earlier level of his DNA, but ended up turning himself into a Spider-Man in the process. Yes. Spider-Man 2099 was one of the more fully fleshed out of the 2099 pantheon, and certainly one of the better remembered. Plus, as always, I've said it so many times on this video, but it's still true, costume is iconic. Also has the original colors that the person who pitched the Venom suit wanted, so that's another fun fact.